Here is the story of Sean O'Malley, an immigrant's tale. A tale as old as America. One of many faces with the same dreams and aspirations. His is a story woven by experience as well as heart, courage, and resilience. As well as faith. But first, your humble narrator would like to elucidate you with how this story came to pass into his hands. It was a yarn woven over a life and brought back by Sean's progeny, a son, who would later move to Liverpool. Passed down generations, your narrator first heard the story on his father's lap and is proud to now tell you this immigrant's tale. Sean's story begins in the year 1830, nestled within the emerald green hills of County Kerry, Ireland, in the village of Glenmore. Glenmore welcomed a new addition to its poor and humble community that crisp, sunny spring March morning when Sean O'Malley entered the world, born of Mary and Patrick O'Malley, devout Catholic Irish tenant farmers who had long toiled the fertile land passed down through generations. As the first cries of the newborn son echoed through the thatched cottage, Mary and Patrick beamed with pride, cradling the tiny bundle of joy in their arms. As Sean would tell the tale in his later years, even the local leprechauns came out to see him. The news of Sean's arrival spread swiftly throughout the village, greeted by neighbors with hearty congratulations and warm embraces. The family welcomed the whole village to greet their new arrival as a fiddle played and the Guinness was poured in celebration. The parish priest, Father O'Malley, Sean's cousin, said a prayer and gave his new cousin a blessing. It was Father O'Malley who would later baptize young Sean into the faith. Glenmore, with its cobblestone streets and whitewashed cottages, buzzed with excitement as villagers gathered to celebrate the birth of the newest member of the tight-knit community. For Sean's parents, his birth represented not only a continuation of their lineage but also a beacon of hope for the future, a future filled with promise and possibility. From the moment he entered the world, Sean O'Malley's presence was felt far beyond the confines of his family's homestead. His infectious laughter and boundless curiosity endeared him to all who knew him, setting the stage for a life destined for adventure and discovery. But amidst the tranquility of rural Ireland, the winds of change were stirring, foreshadowing a journey that would lead young Sean far from the familiar comforts of home and into the unknown depths of the new world. As a young boy growing up in the tranquil village of Glenmore, Sean O'Malley embraced the simple joys of rural life with an infectious enthusiasm. From the earliest hours of dawn, he could be found scampering through the verdant fields and wooded glens that surrounded his family's cottage, his laughter ringing out like a chorus of songbirds in the morning air. Life in Ireland held a deep connection to the land, where the O'Malley family tilled the soil and tended to their modest homestead as they did from time immemorial. Patrick, Sean's father, was a resilient man with weathered hands, an infectious grin, something he passed on to Sean, and a heart rooted in tradition. Patrick imparted the values of hard work, community, Catholic Christianity and a reverence for the land and all creatures to Sean from an early age. Mary, Sean's mother, was a devout and friendly woman of some import to Glenmore, a strikingly beautiful young woman with familiar ties to all the way back to King Brian Boru himself. It was from Mary that Sean learnt compassion and fortitude, as well as the love for the spoken and written word. It was she who taught Sean how to read as a young boy. A must for any O'Brien. Sean's childhood was filled with the laughter of family gatherings, the warmth of peat fires, and the spirited tunes of traditional Irish music. With each passing season, Sean's connection to the land deepened, as he eagerly assisted his parents, Mary and Patrick, in the daily rhythms of farm life. From tending to the family's livestock, one young goat and a single lamb, to helping sow and harvest crops of potatoes and cabbage, Sean relished the sense of purpose and belonging that came with working the fertile soil passed down through generations. Despite the demands of farm work, Sean found solace and joy in moments of leisure, spending hours exploring the rugged hillsides and babbling brooks that crisscrossed the countryside. His love for nature was matched only by his passion for reading and storytelling, and Sean was partial to Charles Dickens' famous essay, A Modest Proposal, teaching him both satire and a larger view of the world. Sean eagerly listened to the tales of local legends and folklore spun by the elders of the village around crackling hearth fires. That is, from everyone but old Lady Macready, who didn't believe the tall tales of banshees or leprechauns until one night in 1840. As she told the story, she was woken one night by what she thought was the howls of the wind, only to see the apparition of a banshee in her window, pointing to her husband. The next morning, old Lady Macready was a widow. As he grew older, Sean's thirst for knowledge led him to pursue a basic education at the village schoolhouse, where he eagerly absorbed the teachings of his teachers and reveled in the camaraderie of his classmates. Yet, even amidst his studies, Sean found time to be an altar boy, help his mother with the sewing, and tend to his 3 younger siblings, Catherine, Michael and Annie, when he wasn't tending the fields or exploring the countryside. Sean would often visit old Lady Macready after school, helping her around her modest home for a few coins and her fabled stories of life in Scotland before her and her late husband moved to Ireland, as well as her insights into Protestantism. Sean wasn't sure what he enjoyed more, her tales or her tea or the occasional biscuit. Sean would also help Molly, an Irish beauty of some 18 years, through any endeavour she'd ask of him. Molly was the best ceilidh dancer in all of County Kerry. In the golden light of adolescence, Sean's heart stirred with the inklings of young love, as he found himself drawn to Molly and green eyes as beautiful as the morning sun. But Molly was older than he, and their courtship was merely in his imagination. Sean's first love blossomed amidst the idyllic beauty of Glenmore, their stolen moments together a precious respite from the toils of farm life and British oppression. But as the shadow of unrest descended upon the land, Sean's carefree days were soon overshadowed by the harsh realities of life, things that his parents Mary and Patrick could no longer hide from Sean. Little did he know that his world was about to be turned upside down, as the winds of change swept him from the tranquil embrace of his homeland and into the tumultuous currents of history. In the golden light of a crisp autumn morning, Sean O'Malley ventured out into the fields surrounding his family's humble cottage in County Kerry. The air was crisp with the promise of a new day, and the fields stretched out before him, bathed in the soft glow of the rising sun. As Sean worked his way through the rows of potato plants, his heart swelled with pride at the sight of the bountiful harvest that promised to sustain his family through the coming winter. But as he reached down to pluck a potato from the earth, his fingers closed around something unexpected, a small, misshapen tuber with a sickly pallor that sent a shiver down his spine. Pulling the potato from the ground, Sean's heart sank as he beheld the rot and decay that marred its surface, a grim harbinger of the devastation that was to come. Hurrying back to the cottage, Sean cradled the spoiled potato in his hands, his mind reeling with fear and uncertainty. Bursting through the door, he found his parents, Mary and Patrick, hard at work preparing the morning meal. With a heavy heart, Sean laid the rotten potato before them, his voice trembling as he recounted the discovery that had rocked their world to its core. As Mary and Patrick gazed upon the spoiled tuber, their faces pale with shock and disbelief, a sense of dread settled over the room like a shroud. They knew all too well the implications of what they were seeing. The blight had come to their doorstep, as it had too many a doorstep before them, bringing with it the spectre of hunger and hardship that would engulf the land. In the days that followed, the news of the blight spread like wildfire through the countryside. Sean and his family watched helplessly as their once vibrant fields withered and died before their eyes. The potatoes that had sustained them for generations now lay rotting in the earth, their hopes and dreams reduced to dust by forces beyond their control. Luckily for them, the O'Malleys still had some cabbage, but it wasn't going to be enough to get all of them through winter. As the Great Famine descended upon Ireland with a merciless fury, Sean and his family were faced with a stark choice: surrender to despair or fight tooth and nail for survival. With courage born of desperation and love, they chose the latter, standing together in solidarity against the tide of adversity that threatened to consume them. Little did they know that their trials and tribulations in the coming years would test their strength and resilience to the very limits. But for now, as they gathered around the hearth fire of their cottage, Sean and his family clung to hope with all their might, determined to weather the storm that raged outside their door. As the cold air of autumn descended, so too the howls of the wind. But it wasn't a howl that stirred emaciated Mary that night from her bed. 'Twas but a whisper. It was late October, and the children were fast asleep, all but Sean, who snuck out of bed to frantically finish carving the face of Jack-o'-lantern on his unsuspecting and recalcitrant turnip for sound. Sean was a relatively patient boy, but not for turnips. Then, something caught his attention. He heard something and rushed to his parents' bedside to see his mother staring at the window. It was she that was to be visited by a banshee that night, but no screams, only whispered solace came from the banshee's lips that night. When Mary slightly turned to see Sean behind her, she glimpsed his gaze. For he had seen the banshee too, and he and the banshee were locked in a stare that lasted no more than a moment. Then the banshee turned to look at Mary once more, the banshee bowing her head and dissolving into nothingness. Then she was gone. Sean and Mary then shared a look of understanding and love before they embraced. It was the last warmth of a mother's embrace Sean would ever have. Mary was dead of starvation by morning. But before she died, she told Sean to be a good boy so that he may find her in heaven. With as warm a smile as he could ever remember, she lay him down to sleep. In the bitter grip of the Great Famine, tragedy descended upon the O'Malley family with a cruel and unrelenting force. In the year 1845, as the blight tightened its grip on the land and hunger stalked the countryside like a silent spectre, Mary O'Malley, the heart and soul of the family, a proud descendant of Brian Burrow, succumbed to the merciless grip of famine. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a pall of grey across the landscape, Sean O'Malley awoke to the sounds of tears and sobs echoing through the stillness of the cottage. Disoriented and groggy from sleep, he stumbled from his bed to find his brothers and sisters huddled together, their faces streaked with tears and grief. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Sean turned to his father, Patrick, whose silent anguish hung heavy in the air like a shroud. Bent over and dejected, Patrick sat in the corner of the room, his fists clenched tightly around his mouth as if to stifle the cries of anguish that threatened to escape. In that moment, Sean knew that the worst had happened, something that would forever change the course of their lives. With trembling hands and a heart heavy with dread, he approached and tried to comfort his father. Through tear-stained eyes, Patrick O'Malley delivered the devastating news. Mary, beloved wife and mother, had passed away in the night, her body, but not her spirit, broken by the relentless onslaught of hunger and deprivation that had ravaged their land. In the cruel calculus of the Great Famine, she had become another tragic victim of a catastrophe beyond their control. As the reality of their loss sank in, Sean and his family were consumed by a profound sense of grief and despair. Mary's absence left a void in their lives that could never be filled, her laughter silenced and her love extinguished by forces beyond their comprehension. In the days and weeks that followed, as they laid Mary to rest in the hallowed earth of their ancestral homeland, Sean and his family vowed to honor her memory by carrying on in her stead, drawing strength from her indomitable spirit and unwavering love. But as they stood beside her grave, their hearts heavy with sorrow, they knew that their lives would never be the same without her. For, beneath the idyllic surface of rural life, economic challenges and the constant threat sustained from centuries of British rule cast shadows over the O'Malley family and their community. The repercussions of historical events, including the Great Famine and the impact of British policies on Irish landowners, weighed heavily on Sean's family. Not wanting to be a burden on his family, another mouth to feed, and the limited opportunities and economic hardships caused by the British, Sean started to contemplate a path less traveled, one that led across the Atlantic to the promise of a new beginning. The decision to leave Ireland was not taken lightly. The whispers of emigration echoed through the village, and tales of newfound opportunities in the United States reached Sean's ears. The allure of a land where one could escape the shackles of economic hardship and forge a destiny of their own making resonated deeply with the young man. The vision of America, a land of possibility and hope, fueled Sean's dreams and eclipsed the uncertainty that lay ahead. In the quiet moments before departure, Sean stood on the emerald shores of his homeland, absorbing the haunting melodies of the Irish winds and the timeless tales etched into the landscape. With a heavy heart and more than a single tear in his eye, he bid farewell to the familiar hills and the embrace of family, carrying with him the dreams of a better life and the weight of generations of Irish resilience. The decision to leave Ireland was a poignant chapter in Sean O'Malley's life, a chapter that would unfold on the shores of a new world, where the echoes of Celtic heritage and the spirit of a young Irishman would find a place in the evolving narrative of the American dream. On Sean's 16th birthday, with a heavy heart and a determined spirit, he bid farewell to his family and the only life he had ever known in the beautiful yet bereft village of Glenmore. As he embraced his siblings for what felt like the last time, tears mingled with smiles, and silent promises passed between them. Though the ache of leaving weighed heavily on his soul, Sean knew that this journey was necessary for the hope of a better future, and, as the older brother, it was he who should leave first to ease the way for the siblings that might follow. He hugged his father and promised him that it wasn't to be their last. A man of few words, Patrick sobbed uncontrollably, both for Sean and for his beloved Mary. But Patrick was happy for Sean and more than a little guilty for feeling relieved for his lightened burden. Sean could feed himself now. Not that it was Patrick's fault for the situation they now faced, and like he did the year before, Sean comforted his father. And, much like Mary did with Sean, Sean smiled to his father, a knowing smile, and bid farewell as he stepped out of his boyhood home's front door and into the wider world. Setting out before dawn, Sean traversed the rugged terrain of County Kerry with a sense of purpose driving him forward. With a small bundle of belongings slung over his shoulder, Sean set out with a heavy heart and a resolve forged in the crucible of grief and hardship. It wasn't long before his footsteps echoed against the cobblestone streets of his beloved Glenmore. The familiar landmarks of his homeland faded into the distance behind him as he forged ahead, his footsteps echoing against the rocky paths and winding roads that stretched out before him, a ribbon of uncertainty and possibility. It was a pilgrimage of sorts, a quest for hope and redemption in a world ravaged by despair. Each step carried him further from the familiarity of home and deeper into the unknown expanse of destiny. As he walked, Sean was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions, fear and uncertainty mingled with a flicker of hope that burned brightly in the depths of his soul. Though the road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, he knew that he could not turn back, not now, not ever. He read the words etched in the arrow along the road. This way to Dublin. The 9-day journey to Dublin City was without incident. He was thankful for the money that he had saved since he was 12 from the odd jobs he did for Fiona Macreed. That is, most of it was saved. Some he had already given his father and mother the year prior when they first felt the pangs of hunger of the blight. Sean walked from sun up to sundown and would only rest for a daily meal at one of the pubs that dotted the road. At night, he'd sleep rough under the stars. He met a few fellow pilgrims along the way and was glad for the crack and conversation. His story was a common one along the Dublin road. Sean had enough to get him to Dublin and then to America and only a few shillings left over. Through mist-shrouded valleys and sun-dappled forests, Sean pressed on, his determination unwavering in the face of adversity. With each passing mile, the landscape shifted and changed around him, a kaleidoscope of colors and textures that mirrored the tumultuous journey of his own life. On the last night of the journey, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Sean finally reached the outskirts of Dublin, the bustling heart of Ireland's capital city. With weary limbs and a heart heavy with anticipation, he made his way through the labyrinthine streets, guided by the distant glow of lamplight and the hum of activity that echoed through the night. Arriving at the bustling port of Dublin, Sean beheld the majestic silhouette of the Garrick, a towering ship that loomed like a beacon of hope against the darkened sky. With a sense of awe and wonder, he approached the vessel to purchase his one-way ticket, his heart pounding with excitement at the prospect of the journey that lay ahead. Tomorrow would begin the next leg of journey aboard the mighty Garrick. Tonight, a bath, a meal, and a bed. But the bed could wait. Despite his exhaustion, Sean walked around Dublin, his first and probably last time in Ireland's capital, and enjoyed, to a point, the lively rhythm of Dublin. It was the Great Famine after all, and he had to leave the fair city in Ireland because of it. He found an inn and rested for the night. He slept like a log. A long journey will do that to you. And as he would soon discover, he'd need the rest for the next leg of the journey. Sorrow gone, Sean woke up with a bounce to his step, a smile on his lips, for today, he was heading for America. His new life had begun. Or soon would. Sean started the day with a prayer and an early mass before a full breakfast and made his way to the quay. He boarded the ship with a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration and felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins as he set foot on the deck. The salty scent of the sea filled his lungs, mingling with the cacophony of voices and the rhythmic thud of footsteps that reverberated through the ship. As the Garrick set sail into the inky expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, Sean O'Malley stood at the bow, his eyes fixed on the horizon as he embarked on the adventure of a lifetime. With the wind in his hair and the promise of a new beginning on the horizon, he knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and obstacles, but he was ready, more ready than he had ever been before, to face whatever fate had in store.